and where nuclear power will fit into the long-term or medium-term energy needs of Japan. I think what we need to see in Japan is calm and rational debate among the Japanese people. Certainly if we're talking about something very, very far off in the future, if we're talking about Japan 100 years from now, then I can see that people would say we should not be dependent on nuclear energy 100 years from now. However, in regard to 30 years from now or 50 years from now, I think, as I mentioned earlier, we need calm and rational debate among the Japanese people. I'm not presenting a solution or a conclusion here. I'm simply saying that we need to have this calm and rational debate.
ドイツなどとは日本は電力を買うことができませんので、ドイツとは違う条件のもとにあるということも事実だと思います。
We know that other nations such as Germany have made decisions, but I would like to point out that we are not quite in the same situation. We're not in the position of being able to buy, for example, electricity from neighboring countries.
指令エネルギーに全てを使えるというのはあまり現実的とも思いません。他方で、地球温暖化ガスをこれ以上どんどん増やしていくという道も取り得ない、そういう条件の下でだいぶ生み出していかなければならないと思います。
I also understand that there are some ideas of replacing all of our energy needs with renewable energy sources. In other words, using natural energy sources. However, in terms of a very short term solution, I do not think it is a realistic solution to expect all of our energy needs to be met 100% from natural energy sources. Also, when we consider alternative energy sources, we must also keep in mind the idea of climate change. We cannot add to global warming. Therefore, these are the difficult parameters, different restrictions that we face as we seek a solution going forward.
同時に我々考えておかなければいけないのは、これは日本自身が原発を持つか持たないかという、そういう議論とは別の議論ですが、日本の周辺の国が、原発をすでに多く持ち、あるいはこれからさらに増やしていくという、事実があると、それに対してそのことが日本に何か事故が起きたときに影響を及ぼしてくるということも念頭に置いて、その対策は考えておかなければならないというふうに思います。
And also, at the same time, I think we must also keep in mind another aspect, which, and this perhaps does not have anything directly to do with whether Japan should hold nuclear power plants or should discard them entirely, but we must also keep in mind as one aspect of this debate the fact that regardless of what Japan elects to do in the future, countries around us, countries very near us, are already beginning to invest in nuclear power plants. As a result, in the future, there could be an accident in some of those plants, in which case Japan could also be affected. This is also another thing that we must keep in mind going forward.
これ以上お話しするのではなくて、私もあまり話が好きではありません。皆さんのご質問にお答えした方がいいなと思います。
So I'm not going to continue now. I would like to respond to your questions. I'm not a person who likes to talk very much to begin with. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Okada. In front of me, the co-chair of our Professional Activities Committee, Ms. Erin Tang, is sitting. I want to thank her and her committee for bringing people like Mr. Okada to the club. Please limit your questions to one, and if we have time, you can ask a second question. Jay. One at a time. Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to express my admiration for Mr. Okada. You are one of the few honest politicians in Japan, which is probably why you're not Prime Minister. Recently, President Obama on July 24th declared Japan's mafia, the Yakuza, or Hanshikai Seiryoku, Boryukudan, whatever word you'd like to use, as a threat to the United States national security, and issued an emergency order to seize all assets and ordered all American companies not to do business with organized crime. What is slightly problematic about that is that the ruling coalition right now has at least 3 members with strong organized crime connections, starting with Kame Shizuka, who was the Minister of Financial Services. In 1994, on the 18th of October, in a session of the Diet, he admitted to receiving $5 million, in payment from Yasuda Ikeji, who was a member of the Yamaguchi-gumi, to make up for losses in stock trades that his contributors had suffered. A known associate of Kyo Eichu, who was serving jail time for fraud, also received political donations from Kajiyama Susumu, the emperor of loan sharking, who laundered millions of dollars in the United States, or at least tried to. Your recently fired Minister of Reconstruction, Mr. Matsumoto, has relatives in a Kyushu organized crime group, which he is admitted to in magazines. Ozawa Ichiro, who is currently on trial for several charges. The head of Mizutani Kensetsu, Mizutani Isao, has testified that he sent $1 million to Ozawa in exchange for a construction project. Mizutani Kensetsu has in court admitted to paying millions of dollars to Yakuza groups, including one group that was responsible for part of the construction at the Fukushima nuclear reactor. It is now common practice in Japan for every hotel, every bank, every sports club, including my sports club, to insert an organized crime exclusionary clause into their contracts.
So, Jay, can you ask your
Yeah,
question?
and the question is, when will Minchuto make a Boryukudan Haido Joko part of being a DGP, a Democratic Party of Japan member, and why don't you find Kami Shizuka's criminal associations problematic?
Thank you.
すみません、非常に岡田様は正直な方だと思います。だからこそ総理大臣になれてないのではないかと思うんでございます。私の質問でございますが、今年の7月24日に、オバマ大統領が、その日本の反社会勢力でございますでしょうか、ヤクザ暴力団、がその、米国のその、安全保障にとって大きな、脅威でもあるというような発表をいたしました。それによってそういう暴力団などがその、保有しております資産を、取り押さえてしたりするっていうようなことを指令として出したそうでございます。ここに質問などございますが、実はその与党あるいは与党、の関係者にこういうようなそのヤクザとかその暴力団とのその関係を持っている方々がいるっていうことでございます。例えば亀井静香さんでございます。1994年の10月18日に、その、国会でございましょうか、その5億円を安田圭司、池地氏から、もらったというふうに言っているそうでございます。これはその株式でその損失が出たのでその補填のために、何かその融通したということだそうでございます。この方はその京 H 氏とも関係があるということでございます。でそしてまたさらにその梶山進氏でございますでしょうか。彼はその米国ではその数百万ドルのマネーロンダリングを行ったというふうに言われております。そしてまた最近辞任されましたその松本前大臣でございますが、彼はその雑誌のインタビューなどでその九州のその暴力団との関係があるということも公言しているそうでございます。でまた小沢一郎氏でございます、水谷建設側が、その後半の場で100万ドル相当のお金をその小沢事務所の方に渡したというふうに言っているそうでございます。またその水谷建設はいろんなところと関係しているそうでございますが、その原発の建設にも関わったということで、非常にその利権の問題があるのではないかというふうに言われております。いろいろ言えるんでございますが、ここも知りたいのはその民主党はいつその反社会勢力の排除条項というようなものを民主党議員になるためのその党員の規則に設けるのでしょうか。そうですね。
大変興味深いお話ありがとうございます。
Very interesting topic, very interesting question.
ただ今お話になったことは噂話の一挙でないか、あるいは裁判で争われている、そういう問題ですから何か決定的なことではないと思います。したがって私は今のご質問にお答えする必要はないと思います。
It was a very, very interesting presentation. However, I must say that all of the things that you mentioned are either not outside the realm of rumors and gossip, or they are matters that are now being debated in the courts. As a result, I do not think there is anything decisive in your comments, and as a result, I cannot respond.
Please, Anthony.
Anthony Rowley, Singapore Business Times. I'll restrict myself to one question rather than a stand-up interview. I happen to think that many of the criticisms of your party are unjustified and unfair. But having said that, I think the party is its own worst enemy. Constant infighting, backbiting, criticism, not least of the Prime Minister. So my question is there anyone in the party that you think is capable of uniting the party behind a set of policies? And if so, who is that person? Possibly it's you.
はい、今民主党は多くの批判にさらされているかと思うのでございます。その多くの批判は、根拠がないと思いますし、アンフェアではないか、フェアではないというふうに思うのでございます。しかしながら、党にも責任があると思います。なぜならば、その党員同士が、非常に仲が悪いというわけでございます。首相を含めて、そういうような喧嘩というか、内部の喧嘩があるというのが良くないことだと思います。でありますので、私の質問は、今、党の中で、全ての方たちをまとめ上げられるようなリーダーというのはいらっしゃると思いますでしょうか。いくつかのその強力な政策を打ち出してみんなを束ねることができるような人はいると思いますでしょうか。もしいたらそれは誰でしょうか。もしかしたらご自分でございますでしょうか。
よく挙党体制とか党がまとまらなければならないという言葉を聞きます。私はそのことはその通りだと思います。
Certainly we hear phrases along these lines. For example, we must take a unified approach as a party, or we must be able to pull together as a party.
ただ幹事長として、党を運営するにあたって公正公平でなければならない。これは党の中だけではなくて国民に対してもそうでなければならないと考えてきました。
However, as Secretary General, I have been entrusted with the responsibility of running the party, and as a result, I felt it very, very deeply. I felt very, very deeply that in running the party, one must always be fair and just. And this is not something that I think is necessary for running the entire party, but it is also an attitude that is important to present to the Japanese people.
ですからルールに反するようなことがあれば、それは党の中でもきちんとルールに基づいて、党のルールに基づいて、一定の処分を受けると。それがたとえどんな人であっても公平にそのルールが適用されなければならないというふうに私は考えていました。
When I talk about a fair and just approach, I believe, for example, that if a party rule has been violated or infringed upon in any way, then the person responsible for that violation or infringement should be disciplined or taken care of according to the party rules. And I think this, if you're going to take a fair and just approach, it does not matter who that person might be, what standing that person might have in the party. The same rules should apply to everyone.
そのことは短期的には党の混乱を招くことがあったとしても、長い目で見れば国民の党に対する信頼を増すことになると、そういう確信をしています。
I believe very strongly that even if such actions over the short term might cause some kind of dissent and confusion and unhappiness within the party, I think that over the long term, this is the only approach that will be able to ensure that the party gains the long-term respect of the people.
Christophe, and then Chairman Koh.
süddeutsche Zeitung in the Hyde Park. Although you are the foreign minister, the former foreign minister, you haven't touched on foreign policy. Now, 5 or 6, you were probably the one foreign minister who made a difference in the last decade or so. 5 or 6 years ago, you published a paper that came to be known as the Okada Vision. And in hindsight, the policy you did together with Mr. Hatoyama were very much that vision was a blueprint of your policy. Now, your successor managed to deteriorate the trust with, with China, with Russia, his successor has a run-in with Korea. My question is, it's incompatible, the Okada vision and the current foreign policy. So what do we